Assalamualaikum everyone. Hello. My name is Momin Janjua. I'm here on behalf of the Human Concern HCI team. I'd like to welcome you all on behalf of HCI. Inshallah, we will be getting started very shortly. So inshallah, we'll aim to start at 7:05. So just give us a couple more minutes.
Walaikum Assalam. Understood, Ahmed. This is Mohammed Adil from Reed Foundation, Pakistan.
Welcome, Muhammad Adil.
Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. This is Muhammad Ahmad from IDEA, Pakistan. Assalamu alaikum.
Welcome, Salam, Muhammad. If you are a panelist, please do turn on your cameras now. We'll be starting shortly, inshallah.
Can you see me, Moment?
Yes, we can see you.
Great.
So we will get started now. Welcome everyone. Thank you for taking the time out of your evening to join our third HCI webinar. Today we're going to be talking about a very special project. Before we begin, I guess I just want to set the stage a little bit. February 11, 2025 marked HCI's 45th year anniversary. 45 years of excellence in providing service worldwide, humanitarian service worldwide. 45 years ago, a group of volunteers in Ottawa got together to provide a response to the humanitarian crisis caused by the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. Today's session is very special because we're covering HCI's very first international project, a project that is 45 years old and continues to serve humanity and generations of individuals in Pakistan and Afghanistan who have benefited from this project. Today we have a panelist. We have Brother Ahmed Atiya and Sister Mashuda Sayed, who recently visited this project in Pakistan. And we have brothers Muhammad Ahmad and Muhammad Adil, who are actually part of the response on the ground and who will be sharing insights from working on this project. So to start, perhaps what we can do is just maybe begin with short introductions, maybe 30 seconds. I'll start with Brother Ahmed.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. As mentioned, my name is Ahmed Atiya. I'm the CEO of Incisive Strategy, a public relations, government relations firm. And as mentioned, I had the pleasure to join HCI on a trip to Pakistan.
Thank you, brother. We'll go to Mashuda next.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Mashuda Sayed, and I'm the vice chair on the board of directors. So I also visited Pakistan on the humanitarian trip with Ahmed and others. Thank you.
Thank you, Mashuda. We'll go with Muhammad Adil next.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name is Mohammed Adil. I work for Reed Foundation, which is a national charity registered since 1994. So I'm one of their general managers. I work for the institutional fundraising, and we are one of the partners for, Human Concern Canada. Thanks.
And last but not least, Muhammad Ahmad.
Assalamu alaikum. This is Muhammad Ahmad, and I'm executive director of IDEA, Pakistan. We are partner with HCI in Pakistan, and I really congratulate on the 45th anniversary of HCI. It's a great work. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we'll dive right into it. We have a few questions for all of our
I
panelists.
really congratulate
Maybe we'll
uh,
start with Brother Ahmed, who
anniversary
was
of
on the ground a few months ago in Pakistan. And, you know, Ahmed, I'm going to ask you to share a story, something that stood out to you during your visit, and something that really highlights the impact of HCI's work. Brother
Thank
Ahmed,
you.
who was
I think there's a bit of an echo
a few
from
months ago in Pakistan.
the account called
And
HCI AK.
Ahmed,
There's a bit of a lag.
yeah, you should be good now.
Thank you. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. First of all, Assalamu alaikum to everyone, and then especially Brother Muhammad Ahmad and Muhammad Adil. It's good to see you again. We spent beautiful time together in Pakistan. I will tell everyone here, without a doubt, both these brothers are some of the, probably some of the best people in Pakistan doing such important work, and they were so generous to us and showing us the country and the culture and the work that they do there. And it's a pleasure to see you again and connect again. I'll also say from my time spent in Pakistan, I know in Pakistan it's quite early right now. It's probably middle of the night and almost Fajr. So to both of them, thank you for waking up to join those in Canada who want to learn more about the work in Pakistan. There are so many stories, Brother Mu'min. Let me just say that we landed in Islamabad. We traveled all the way to Kashmir, making stops along the way in different places. We went to Peshawar and then Karachi and then the Sindh region and Hyderabad and and what that really means, first of all, Pakistan is a beautiful country and there are so many people, different languages, different cultures and it just blew my mind. But what it really means is that HCI is doing phenomenal work in every part of the country, and I congratulate for HCI for being there and being present. And one of the projects that really struck me, and I imagine it really struck the colleagues who were on that trip, is a school called Hope Village, and by the name you can tell it's not just a school. It was called Hope Village because it was the heart of a community that offered both education, and skill development, medical support, and it has a beautiful masjid as part of it. And this was the first project that HCI had ever done in Pakistan. And to see a project like that, and I know probably Sister Mashuda was also very much, struck by this project, and she'll probably, I imagine, speak more about it. But I don't think it's every day with a Canadian relief charity that you get to see something they started 40 years ago and witness it 40 years later. And to see generation after generation has benefited from it is a true accomplishment. I really can't describe in words the how I felt in seeing that. But I think for every Canadian donor that ever gave $1 to HCI, they should be incredibly proud of this organization for many projects but specifically that one. I think we're going to hear a lot more about it, but it made me proud to see that HCI is not just going places, dropping $1 or $2 of its donors to have some immediate kind of one-time impact, but it actually has a track record, and I saw it with my own eyes, of a project that has helped multiple generations of people, and it still stands and continues to do so.
Thanks, Ahmed. What you just mentioned at the end about immediate one-time impact. Of course, at HCI, our philosophy is taking communities from crisis to sustainability, right? And there's no better example than this project that you just mentioned, the Hope Village. In your opinion, why is it so important for donors and, the public in general to fully understand the scope of the work a charity does beyond just emergency relief, right? Because I feel like emergencies get, all the attention. Typically, they're in the media, they're talked about on social media, everybody knows about them, but, a lot of people forget about what happens after an emergency hits. So why is it so important for the public to know about efforts that are made to actually get these communities rebuilt and back on their feet?
You know, a project like Hope Village and the work that HCI is doing in Pakistan and other places of the world, shows us that there is a difference between humanitarian work that helps communities impacted by crisis survive versus projects that helps those communities thrive and break out of that crisis and break out of the impacts of it, like poverty and food insecurity and disease, and begin to, generation after generation, break out of it and become independent and return back to the true humanity that we expect for our brothers and sisters around the world. I always read and knew, and I always hear the brothers and sisters at HCI talk about their mission of taking communities from crisis to sustainability, but I never fully, completely understood it until I went on this trip to Pakistan, because I was able to see it. And Canadian donors have played a big part in sustaining those projects. When we went to Hope Village, we saw, one generation that was educated now coming back a cycle later, being the teachers of that school. We heard of students who graduated who, have went back to Afghanistan, for example, because Hope Village has supported the Afghan refugees in Pakistan. Have went back to Afghanistan and played critical roles in building in that country again. And so sometimes it's not even just sustainability in the sense that family can have their own home and buy their own food and work. But what we saw from HCI's project are families who were actually given the education, but more importantly, the dreams to go back and to offer leadership and a constructive role in building their country again, going from being refugees to being leaders in the countries that they saw, they were forced to be displaced from or leave. And so, but this is something that, we really need to think about. And I just want to take everybody's minds to, as donors and as leaders and Canadian leaders and those who support HCI, to really think about this for a minute, because as a donor community, and one that, Canadian Muslims are probably leading, in charitable donations and philanthropy in our country. But we are often, because of the nature of our faith and the parts of the world that we come from, we are constantly being pressured and demanded of to respond to emergency crisis. And yes, there's a need. We do need to build wells in places, and we do need to provide camps where there's, war-torn zones, and we offer the medical aid that people need. But we also need to think about what comes later for those communities. And HCI is doing that. But what we need to think about is the challenges of the humanitarian sector and our role as donors to overcome those challenges. And one of these key challenges that I saw and that I really reflected upon when I visited Hope Village and other projects that have been in Pakistan for many, many years, is that when you invest and when you prioritize sustainability, you must be ready as a charity, as a relief organization, but also as the donor group that supports it, to maintain your support of those projects over the long term and ensure that support remains intact and we nurture it and we continue to fuel it despite the pressures of emergency crises in other parts of the world. What we saw in Pakistan was, yes, Hope Village continues to operate and exist. HCI's complex in Kashmir continues to operate. It's a beautiful school. But what we saw are projects that either are deteriorating or they are have been, the operations have been cut back. The number of beneficiaries that are benefiting have been, have been cut back because there are funding shortages, because instead of funds going from Canada to Pakistan, instead of they're being redirected to, today it's Gaza, before that it's something else. So there are always these pressures. And so my message to those listening today is that when we work with HCI donors, we need to think about how we contribute our donations. And this is a very technical concept that I'm about to share, but we often are giving our donations to very specific appeals. We tell HCI, I want to donate to support an orphan. I want to build a well, right? I want to support, medical aid being sent to Gaza. These are what's called in the charitable sector, very restricted donations, which means that HCI must take that donation from you and spend it on exactly the cause you've asked them to. But the reality is, with the world we live in today, as humanitarian aid and support, like institutionally from like UN, now we're seeing US aid, we're seeing institutional donations reducing. We're seeing higher impact on local community charities like HCI and others. There are very, high pressures to do more with less. And so what we need to think about as a donor is what's actually called general donations. And we need to support HCI by saying, look, I'm going to donate to you and you use it in the best possible place you think is needed, so that HCI can use its humanitarian relief experience, all the years that it has built an experience, its programming team, its fundraising team, to be able to say, look, we're going to send this amount of money to Palestine, but we're going to dedicate consistently this amount of money to Pakistan and other places where we've committed. And I think this is very important because, as a donor base in Canada, when we once upon a time said we're going to donate to build, Hope Village or other projects in Pakistan, we need to remain committed to that. We can't leave those communities behind just because there are other pressures around the world. And we need to rely on the charities that we trust, like HCI, to make the decisions on how they're going to spend the funds that they're collecting. And that's what I saw. And this is a very specific, feedback to everybody listening. But this is what I actually really reflected upon when I was in Pakistan, because we saw beautiful projects. We saw communities that were thriving because of them. But we also saw that wherever we went, they said to us, we love HCI. We love what HCI has done for us. We love the Canadians who have supported us, but we're suffering because, our buildings are falling apart. Our homes need renovation. Our wells have broken apart because they have like a certain lifespan. They need to be rebuilt or fixed. And so, there are pressures on HCI to continue these projects. And as donors, we need to recognize that. And instead of every dollar going to a very specific purpose, even though there's a need today, like in Gaza, we need to think about these other projects because we can't let them fall behind. And so that is my message today to everybody. I think it's a critical message. And I know it's a challenge that HCI and other charities are facing. And as donors, we need to continue to support HCI in its work around it.
Thanks, Ahmed. I think what you just said really resonates with me as well. I think if I could summarize what you just said is, donate to crises, but invest in sustainability, right? And oftentimes those are the projects that are most impactful but forgotten. So completely, agreed with your message. And I think, when we look at this Hope Village in Pakistan, I think that's an excellent example of investing in sustainability, right? I heard from colleagues who were on that trip with you that, there's a student who was a student 45 years ago and is now actually the principal of one of the schools, which is amazing. And I think not a lot of charities could actually say that about one of their projects, right? And on that note, in terms of, HCI's history on the ground in Pakistan, I want to turn it over to Mashuda and ask her, HCI has been serving communities for 45 years. How has our work in Pakistan evolved over time?
Sure. So HCIS has been working for over 45 years. So I guess the first project itself started in Pakistan as Ahmed mentioned, for the refugees from Afghanistan. So how has that evolved? It's actually evolved quite good. Its presence in Pakistan dates back, like I said, to 40 years. HCI's work actually began with emergency response, particularly for the Afghan refugees fleeing the war in the 1980s. And then this led to the creation of projects such as the Hope Village, which Ahmed mentioned, which provided not just a shelter, but also essential services like education, healthcare, and vocational training. So over the years, HCI has expanded its efforts to address interconnected humanitarian issues from education to clear water access, healthcare, and economic empowerment. The organization recognized that solving one problem alone, such as providing food or temporary shelter, is just not enough. So holistic solutions are needed to help communities truly break free from cycles of poverty and crisis. HCI's legacy in Pakistan is unique because of its ability to demonstrate a clear, long-term impact. Many of the charitable organizations actually focus on short-term interventions, but HCI's approach is actually long-term because we're committed to not just providing emergency relief, but getting people from emergency to become, self-sufficient so that they can survive on their own. So does that answer your question, or?
Well, no, absolutely.
like
And
more?
I know you're also on the ground with Ahmed
I
when
was.
you visit, right?
Yes.
So talk to us more about, your experience visiting and any key insight.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. So actually, my personal experience from visiting is fantastic because being a donor for over so many years, you actually never know where your money goes, right? So for me to go and actually visit all the projects in person, for me, that was a very eye-opening experience. And then when I came back, the people who donate regularly, I'm able to tell them, hey, I saw where your money went, like if they built a water well or they built a home for the flood regions or they sponsor a child or, whatever, wherever they've donated. So I'm a witness to wherever their money was spent and my own money. So when I come back, I'm able to report, that the money has been spent well. And I also felt that there's a lot of room for improvement. And also, as Ahmed mentioned, we need to do a lot of maintenance. So the projects are there and people are there, but we need more maintenance. So I would urge people again to, keep donating to Pakistan. I know everybody's donating to Gaza, but there is a need worldwide to other projects as well. There's a lot of human beings out there, and there's so many different levels of poverty in Pakistan that it's unimaginable. Actually, we don't even realize it until we go and visit these places.
And someone from Pakistan, I can resonate, right? I was born there and I have visited from time to time. And things don't seem to be getting better, right? So it's crucial for organizations like HCI, who have strong partners on the ground, and are able to really fund these impactful projects, for them to be supported. While you were
Exactly.
on the ground, and as you interacted with the students and the teachers and the different projects that we had, was there anything that stood out to you? Any interaction that you had that was particularly memorable that you want to share?
Yes. So one thing that stood out to me is they're all extremely hardworking. They all have hope. Like for me, that's the key. So if you have hope in life, that means you can actually accomplish something. So every single place that we visited, like whether it was the flood region or the orphan or the schools, every single person that I interacted with, they all had a positive attitude and they all had hope. So, for me, that's a really big thing. If everybody out there has hope, we can do a lot more together, right? And succeed. And one thing that really stood out for me that I think I was very lucky is the child that I've been sponsoring from Kashmir. I was actually able to meet her. So for me, that was a very big deal because it didn't even occur to me that I could meet her. And, she was there and I was able to meet her. So I know for a lot of other people, sometimes when you sponsor a child, you're a little bit hesitant. You don't know if, the money is actually reaching that child or not. So when I met the child, I met her and her mom, and they were very grateful. So we knew, where your money is going. You're not just helping that child, but you're actually helping her entire family. So for me, that was a, exceptional. I think I became quite emotional as well when I met her. So for me, that was very exceptional, that I
Yeah,
was able to meet her. Yeah,
that's such a beautiful story. And
it is. Yeah,
I know many who sponsor children around the globe would love to have that opportunity to feed
100%.
them, right? So it's a very unique opportunity. I think it's also very important for you and for others who have visited and who have done field visits to share these stories, right? Because it really makes things real. I mean, it's one thing where you're reading a report or you're seeing pictures or videos, and it's another thing where you hear a personal kind of story or testimonial from somebody who's
Exactly.
been there. So
It's exactly like I know now for myself, when I tell my friends, I have like actual first-hand experience visiting these places, seeing everything with my own eye. So then, it also helps to build credibility and transparency being a charity, right?
yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Mashida. I'm going to turn to our partners now. And maybe first I'll call on Mohammed Ahmad to really briefly introduce your organization and the work you do with HCI on the ground in Pakistan, just so our viewers can learn a little bit more about the different projects that we have.
Thank you. So IDEA has been established in 2003, and since then we are working in Pakistan, especially in the conflict and natural disaster affected areas of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, Balochistan, Kashmir. And since then, we have faced a number of emergencies. We have so far completed 150 projects, and still 12 projects are going on. We have around 600 staff. We have 12,000 students of Afghan refugees other than the Hope Complex. We have been partnering with HCI since 2022, and since then we are working together.
Thank you, Mohammed. Are there any sometimes when we like as donors, when we donate money, we think that, that money is, easily spent towards something, like the people on the ground have everything figured out and everything's going to go smoothly. Are there any challenges that are present there for organization like yours, specifically in that region?
Yeah, let me first give a message to whosoever is contributing. Like this is one of the signature project of CIA, and at first we were reluctant to take it over, but like later on we were happy when we came to know about. Uh, so it's we are ensuring value for money. And let me assure you that is with every dollar you are donating, it's not only money, it's a message of hope. It's a message of solidarity, it's a message of humanity. And the partner organization like CIR idea, we are adding further value that love, affection, and our technical expertise to your donation and making it a life-changing tool for the affected communities. The second thing I would say, this is a perfect example of nexus, like humanitarian development and peace nexus, that we are starting from a humanitarian situation and converting them that situation into the development arena, and that is producing peace and prosperity for the affected population and generation after generation. So I think we need to continue to support it. It's also provide us opportunity for, especially for the displaced population, to have sustainable solution and dignified living in the host country, and help them in repatriation if they are doing it voluntarily. So it's one of the best project we ever had. Having said that, there are challenges. Working with the displaced community is not easy. Uh, uh, Sometimes the acceptability with the government, we are scrutinized by different agencies because it's a critical area and a lot of things are related to it. But challenges are part of the game. And this is the area where we are bordering with Afghanistan. So somehow the border area is always a turbulent area because of various reasoning right now on that area like bordering with Afghanistan, there are clashes there. So the situation, though, as we have new emergency across the world, is a Ukraine crisis, a Gaza crisis, is Syria, but like still the Afghanistan situation is not stable, and we have like 2 years before we have another displacement wave, and still Pakistan is hosting around 3 million displaced population, refugees from Afghanistan. On the other side, the I must talk about the Kashmir. So that area is ultra poor. The people are ultra poor, and we are targeting mostly the orphans. And mostly there are girls. There are two school annexed with the higher secondary school, so it's a perfect combination that all the three facilities are is working together, and we have been providing services, and they are now securing position in the board in the matriculation examination. So it's a sign that we are not only uh, adding a value, but we are adding to the access and quality of education. And the quality is justified or can be verified by the result of the students. So it's like a holistic approach. Someone is contributing with their money, some some partner are contributing with their technical expertise, but I must appreciate the teachers who are there. They are working very hard, and the credit goes to them that they are teaching with dedication, and this is the result of their dedication that we are now, our students are now securing position, and they are brilliant enough, and they are pursuing, some of them are now pursuing career. So it's a holistic approach. It's not only like the dollar is initiating and supporting it, but it's like the whole cycle of solidarity, collaboration, and cooperation. Everyone is contributing to add value to that dollar, and we are producing result together. So we are proud of the work we are doing with the HCI. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Muhammad Ahmad. I'll turn to Brother Muhammad Adil and maybe ask the same question. Could you talk to us about the work that your organization is doing on the ground, Reed Foundation, and perhaps also some challenges that you're facing while you do that work?
Sure. Thank you very much, Momin. So, as I said in the introduction, that my name is Muhammad Adil. I work for Reed Foundation. Reed Foundation exists from 1994, so it's been 30 years for us, and we are mainly implementing, education programs, but at the same time, we are also, implementing humanitarian work in Pakistan. So we have around 400 schools, formal schools. That includes 120,000 students and around 6,000 teachers. So these are all, not-for-profit schools. And besides this, we are also implementing, particular community-based schools for the out-of-school girls in areas such as Thar Parker or Deamir, which is in the, north east of the country in Gilgit-Baltistan. So as I said, that mainly, Reed Foundation focuses on the education, unmet education needs, because in our country there are 23 million children who are out of the school. So it's an emergency in itself, that the fifth largest population of the world with such a large number of out of school kids. But besides this, wherever we have the presence, wherever we have the footprints on the ground, we are also responding to the emergencies in Pakistan. Unfortunately, because of the climate change phenomena, Pakistan also ranks pretty high on the vulnerability. According to a German Watch report, we are the fifth most vulnerable nation, or fifth most vulnerable country in the world. And therefore every now and then, any any weather event turns into a disaster in our country. For example, in 2022 we experienced a massive flooding that impacted 33 million people, poor people and vulnerable people. So therefore, Reed Foundation also works on humanitarian response together with HCI and other partners. And not only that, we provide the first aid or the first immediate response, but we also couple this with the sustainable solutions. So that's what we do. As long as the challenges are concerned, I think my colleague Ahmad has laid it out very beautifully, that the challenges are immense. We have, because of the geographical, nature of our country, we have, we experience receiving Afghan refugees after every, spell of intensity in Afghanistan. So we have had over 3 million Afghan refugees living in our country, but sometimes there are fresh displacements as well. And within our country, there are also, because of the natural disasters, there have been several displacements. So in short, the needs are unimaginable, and the poverty is gigantic here. So providing only short-term relief is not the solution. Rather, investing onto the resilience of communities and supporting them to, turn their situations is the right call, I would say. And therefore I appreciate your partnership with local organizations in Pakistan for so long, and investing onto the projects which are game changers, I would say. Thank you.
Thank you for that. There's something that you said that really jumped out to me. You mentioned that 23 million kids are not in school in Pakistan. Do you have any insights as to why that is? Is it because of lack of institutions, lack of teachers, or is there a cultural thing? Like, what is causing such a high number of kids to not register to school?
Yes, Momin, it's quite a complex situation, mainly because Pakistan is not a developed country, and therefore we cannot spend a good decent amount of our GDP on education. So in a way, it's not a prioritized sector. With less government spending on it, I think this is one basic reason. And it results into both uh, poor availability of the infrastructure. The school buildings, the school infrastructure is collapsing. During this visit of November, when our colleagues from HCI were on ground, we traveled to all four provinces of the country, not Balochistan, but the three provinces of the country, like Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, Sindh, and Azad Jammu and Kashmir. And we experienced for the I mean, first-hand experience of visiting the public sector schools, and they could remember that, how appalling the situation is because the infrastructure is collapsing. And then there are several schools with just one teacher in a school. So imagine that a child as young as 6 years old who's just starting up his or her school, and then in the same classroom you have a 13 to 14 years adolescent sitting with you. So it's very different for a teacher to manage one classroom at the same time, teaching different subjects and all that. So there are a host of challenges, and then on top of everything we also have cultural barriers. So those make it very difficult for the girl child to be able to complete first getting admission into school and then being able to complete the primary cycle of education or the secondary cycle of education. I would say it will be a miracle in these circumstances in the far off districts of the country.
Thank you for that. That's very insightful. We've talked about the work that you've done and the challenges that are on the ground. Let's pump some hope into this conversation. I want to hear from you. You've been working in this field for decades. Maybe starting with Brother Muhammad Ahmad, what are some stories that you can tell us of impact that have really touched you? Is there anything that stands out through your work that you often think about that keeps you going?
Yeah, in the last visit, rather before HCI colleagues were coming, so I visited a school. This is for my personal uh, encouragement. When I visited Kashmir, so I was asking students that what you are, uh, why you are reading and why you are coming to school. So kindergarten student replied me for wisdom. And that was the moment because I used to teach in the university, and the clarity of his mind and the brisk of his answer, wisdom. Oh, so I never heard this answer from anybody, even in the debates and this and that. So, they are coming not for, they are getting education not for job, not for something else, but for wisdom. They can live a beneficial life and the life beneficial for other. So I said, okay, now from this onward, you will be my teacher. So I used to go there, and it's the situation is tough. I'm leading the humanitarian network in Pakistan, and usually in different type of negotiation, and usually in the offices you get tired and all this stuff, different problem of access and this and that. But it's very re-energizing for me to go to the community and spend time with them. And if you have this satisfaction that what I'm doing is beneficial for someone and it is resulting in their life is changing, so it's very somehow very soul satisfaction to go and see the impact of your work. Otherwise, in the offices, in these on the desk work, sometimes you get tired and sometimes you lose energy. So the second thing is, as you mentioned, if the student we have taught now teachers, they are leading, they have jobs, they are back to Afghanistan. Some of them are back to Afghanistan in bureaucracy. Some are businessmen. So when we meet them, so it's like the product of your services basically. And you understand that somewhere, sometime, somewhat, you have contributed to their life. And if they are telling you that, okay, I have been in the Hope Village in 1990, and I studied there, and I was living there when there was I was alone and there was no hope. So there was a hope village, and I was there, and it changed my life. So, like this message, when you hear it from the person, and now or she is established, so somehow on the back of uh, like it is very soul satisfactory moment, then that okay, my life is not I'm not wasting my life. I have a cause, and I have contributed to the rest of the people's life. So somehow, I'll refer back to the challenges. One of the recent challenge now the whole sector is facing, and that is like the Trump staff work. So the whole it has a global impact, but it has also impacted the work in Pakistan because there are refugees and we are facing multiple crises, and at once the like the message came in, and the organization stopped their work, and it has provided a vacuum now. So thousands of students, thousands of like patient, and there are like the vulnerable population. So at once the work is stopped, and now they are more vulnerable, in fact, because previously there were no hope. But if you have some hope for services, in advance it get cut. So the whole sector is suffering from that order. Pakistan may not be an exception, it's a whole global phenomena, but it has impacted us a lot. Thank you.
Thank you. That was very, very deep and insightful. And I think when you mention, the work that you do re-energizes you, I think I can resonate with that. I've worked in the private sector, I've worked in the public sector, and, now my job in the nonprofit sector, it doesn't feel like a job. It doesn't feel like work, right? I'm not counting the hours when I'm working. So there is something about the nature of our jobs and the people that we interact with that give us a sense of purpose that makes any challenge surmountable. So thank you for sharing that. And maybe I'll ask Mohammed Adil the same question. In your time working in this sector, are there any stories or moments that have stuck out to you that have given you hope?
There are plenty, Moment. Thank you very much for asking about it. Generally, I think every day when we walk into this work, we all feel energized and motivated and enthusiastic because of the, different stories that we come across. For example, we visited some schools with the school wells, and we could see the glee and happiness and satisfaction that the children were sharing with us. So it all, helps you feel energized and enthusiastic about your work. So, I mean, we visited Charsadda, and we spoke to the teachers and their students, and they said that we did not have the access to the water, drinking water, as well as water for the sanitation or using in the toilets. And now we're very happy. So these are some very small examples, but at the same time, for example, in some far off, districts, we provided them with the IT lab and robotics labs, and those girls, they won certain competitions. So those are some very beautiful stories, very encouraging stories. And whenever I'm returning back from the field, I share these with my own kids, that see, people who live in very difficult circumstances. If those are given opportunities, they can also, create wonders, and they can do such fabulous work. So this is how, we all feel in this sector, particularly. If you have a human contact, then you become true humanitarian. So I think finding out opportunities to meeting communities is the key, because this is how you learn and see those, miracles happening with whatever that you do. Either if you're a donor, you're donating money, or if you're contributing into a project, you're designing a project or implementing it. So I think there are plenty of, examples. For example, in Sindh, where we constructed the, houses post flood 2022. So there we saw that how difficult it is for people to live in those circumstances. But those beautiful houses with a kitchen, with a toilet, that has turned their life. So it's good that we have sustainable solutions being offered. We're not only providing them simple plastic sheeting to live by, rather a full package. So that's really inspiring, and it also helped, because then we saw that the government also replicated similar, housing projects. So it was good that we could do some pilot projects, pilot initiatives. Of course, we cannot alone resolve all the miseries that we come across, but those pilot projects help others to replicate. So yeah.
Thank you. So let's look to the future. Maybe we'll stay with Brother Muhammad Adil. How do you see, in the long term, how do you see the partnership between HCI and Reed Foundation developing? What are some areas we can work on together to create self-dependency?
I think one particular area which is like, budding now, this is a skill center that we have put together jointly in Judo, in Mirpur Khas. So that skill center will empower, communities instead of making them feel dependent on food aid or, a regular supply of assistance. If those young people acquire some skills, those skills will be, applied, and they will become self-empowered. So these are some of the initiatives, and there is another one like, HCI and Reed Foundation are building a college for girls in Bhimber, Azad Kashmir. So that's also something very, unique initiative, because this is how we will have a very long-term solution, because a college complex or a college building, will see us, graduating thousands of girls who perhaps may not have that luxury of completing or being able to complete their education. So such initiatives are always very powerful. They leave a very high impact in the communities, in the societies, and they provide long-term solutions, lifelong solutions. So I think together we are seeing such projects which are long term, which are sustainable, and this is how we are aligned with the global, sustainable goals. So all such projects which are sustainable, I think this is how we, become aligned with the global, sustainable development goals. So, and this is how we contribute. And perhaps we need to, we need to, shed some more light on such initiatives. We need to invite in and engage, for example, embassy, invite them to inaugurate the project, so that they also know that how, Canadian people are contributing for these projects. So I think this is one missing element that I see here now, that the embassy here or the government representatives here, perhaps they do not know as much as they should know about the joint work or the contribution of HCI in Pakistan. So there is, one-off media attention, but I think there has to be consistent messaging about this positive collaboration. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's so important. And I know our government relations team is working on a strategy to push that further. I want to turn to Brother Muhammad Ahmad and ask you the same question. What's next? What's the future?
I'll echo with what Adil has already said. I think skills. We need to focus on the skill simultaneously with the education, hard skill and soft skill. That can be an income generating activity, not for only for the family, but for these institutions. So the dependency will lower down year by year, and the institution would be sustainable. So, like this is the world of AI and computer science now. We need computer science, computer labs, and these such type of soft skill. Alongside, we can start with the hard skill, like the technical vocational skills. uh, it will not only one of the reason of the dropout are the low enrollment is poverty. So if we will provide a solution for that, so the community will send their kids to the school, because at the end of the day we will be imparting not only education but skills as well, and it can be used for second time for the community at journal as well. I completely endorse what Adil has already said. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll be turning to questions very shortly. I want to give Ahmed and Mashuda a moment to provide perhaps some closing remarks. Of course, you spent time in Pakistan. You spent time both with Muhammad Ahmad and Muhammad Adil. Any reflections on what they've said during this panel?
Shuda, you want to go first?
Go ahead, Ahmed.
Okay, I'll go. A few things as I listened to both of them, and I think the two are being very humble. Like Muhammad Imad is an international humanitarian leader. He's not like, yes, he's you know uh, does major work in Pakistan, but he's sitting at the table with important organizations around the world that are thinking about the future and sustainability. So, and I just wanted to acknowledge the importance of the people that we're talking to today. So often we think, we in Canada or the West understand humanitarian work. We don't. It's the people on the ground. And so the first thing about, the thing that, I want people on the call to realize is that one of the things that HCI is doing and does well is look for partners on the ground who can be trusted and who know what they're doing. And I think that's a big part of, um, you know, uh, working towards sustainability, because, you know, it starts with trusting and engaging and listening to the communities on the ground, vis-a-vis your partners, directly with the communities, in the design and the implementation of humanitarian projects and sustainability projects there. They know their conditions, they know their challenges, and it's our role to help empower them through the resources that we can bring them from Canada and from those who are privileged to be living in Canada with the resources that we have here. I think we need to support, those who are there in Pakistan and other places, train local leaders and bring our skills and our experiences to them as well, and empowering them, because they understand the cultures, they understand the communities, and they're an extension of HCI, but they're an extension that has the true understanding of what's needed to take us to sustainability. So that's the first thing. The second thing that comes to my mind as I listen to everyone's remarks, is that as we go forward in the future, when we talk about sustainability, I'm not a humanitarian expert, but from what I saw in Pakistan, it opened my eyes, and it made me come back and reflect. You know, it's all about, as we have these conditions where there's so much pressures on us in the humanitarian sector around the world, funding is being reduced. You see the Trump effect, where imagine like the U.S. is probably the number one funder around the world, through U.S. aid, is all just shut down. Like the world is changing, right? And it's fragile, and so we need to be innovative in the way that we support communities, and we need to encourage them and empower them to be innovative. There were discussions about income generating activities, ideas like microfinancing, cooperative businesses, supporting their agricultural projects there to make them self-sufficient. And then I think we also need to, um, think about specific segments of the communities in these countries that are actually the heart of what makes them sustainable, and that is women and children. Like I saw it firsthand. There's an interconnection between education and clean water, and you know and and the empowerment of women. Where we went to areas where HCI, like you would go to places in Pakistan, like villages, where in one village HCI is investing and supporting, and the next village doesn't have the, is another village that doesn't have necessarily the humanitarian support. You can directly see the difference between them, how giving a certain village access to clean water has allowed their daughters and girls to go to school because the girls don't have to spend their days traveling to collect water and instead go to school to be educated and allow the women to be focused on supporting their families and in some cases livelihood projects. You can see how the women in those communities are empowered, are leaders in their communities versus others, right? And so there's an interconnectivity between the work we do. Another example I'll just say quickly is just as in looking at certain segments of vulnerable communities. HCI partners with an organization called Deaf Reach, which runs schools across the countries for deaf children, which is a very specific segment, but a very vulnerable one in a country like Pakistan. And HCI specifically invests not just in their education, but in their vocational projects, skill development. And children in those schools are being taught, to skills for the textile industry, skills for, learning culinary, the industries where they can find futures in. And there are actually, the work through that organization and HCI support, those children are actually finding paths to find jobs. And then we met deaf children who graduated and they got married and they have their families and they're working and they're supporting themselves. And so innovation, looking at the most vulnerable communities are ways for the future, I think, in allowing communities to become sustainable and thrive. So those are just some thoughts. And I want to thank again for them, Muhammad Imad and Muhammad Adil. They really inspired me in my time that I spent with them.
Thanks, Ahmed. For someone who's not a humanitarian, mashallah, you do have lots of great ideas. Mashuda, we'll turn to you next. Any closing remarks?
Sure. First of all, I just wanted to thank both of our partners. I think we have fantastic partners and we're very lucky actually to be working alongside such great and reputable partners that we have in Pakistan, because without them, I don't think we can achieve a lot of the work, and they are reputable. So it's very good. And, it gives you that sense of security that your money is in good hands. So some of my closing remarks would be that HCI's work in Pakistan is a shining example of how humanitarian aid must evolve beyond short-term crisis responses into long-term sustainable developments. The vision of HCI is not just about helping people survive, it is about helping them thrive, moving from crisis, stability, and ultimately prosperity. Basically, we want them to be self-sustaining, right? The responsibility to sustain these initiatives does not end with one generation. We must ensure that future generations continue to benefit from these projects. So to all the donors, supporters, and community members who are out there today, we have a role to play in making sure that HCI's impact continues, not just only in Pakistan, but across the world, wherever we can help people. Thank you.
Thank you, Mashuda. We'll turn to questions. There's one question that we got. Perhaps Ahmed, you can answer this one first. For those of us who cannot donate, what are some ways where we can still have an impact?
Okay. I mean, first of all, it takes me straight to the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, that if you see a wrong, you have responsibility to fix it. You see an injustice to, and the first way is with your hands, and that means to act, right? And in this case, it could be giving your money, right, through your charity, and it could be volunteering with HCI, because HCI is a fundraiser and they need volunteers to come out. It could be using your social, well, before that, the Prophet then said, if you can't use your hands, to use your mouth, so to speak to justice. In our world, it's a digital world that we live in, and so using your social media to promote work that HCI is doing, right, to educate others. You don't have to be an influencer, but you can use your platform and your network to do that. And it could be to the extent of you even do your own crowdfunding with HCI or to support it. And then if that is something you can't do, then your heart, is, pray for the people who are vulnerable and in need and in crisis and around the world, and keep them in your prayers. And we're going into the month of Ramadan, no better time to increase your prayers for these people. So that's to your question. That's that's what comes to my mind. Exactly.
Thanks, Ahmed. Mohammed Ahmad, any insights to share on that one? How can people help if they're not able to give financially?
I think, as Brother Ahmad said, there are many ways. It's not only like the dollar. If you can contribute, like it is said that wherever your money is going, your heart is going. So the first of all, like if you can contribute monetarily, it's good. But whatever support you can give, you can convince a person in the house, in the neighborhood. You can support us on social media. There are a lot of ways. We need moral support as well. So I think there are many ways, and everybody has a niche. Whatever they can contribute, please contribute. It's for the humanity. It's for the like your own satisfaction. So nothing is less when it comes to good. Every small deed is big in your own, for your own soul, in the eyes of the Allah, in the eyes of the Creator, and it is contributing. Your single word can contribute. So whatever we can contribute, we all need to contribute. Thank you.
Thank you. Mashuda, you're someone who's in the community a lot. You fundraise for HCI, a bunch of times. What do you say to people who say they're not able to give? What advice do you have?
Sure. I always tell them, please give your time. Because for me, I think sometimes time is actually more valuable than the money that you give. Because maybe if you're going to give time, you may raise hundreds and thousands of dollars. Perhaps you can't donate that, right? So I always tell people, please give your time if at all possible.
Thanks. That's great advice. Thank you for that. We have a question about climate change. More and more we hear about the effect of climate change in Pakistan. Of course, a recent and major, example was in 2022 with the floods in Balochistan. How has that impacted, charitable projects in Pakistan and in these regions that are vulnerable to climate change? Maybe we'll go with Mohammed Adil for this one.
Thank you very much, Momin. I think it was not only limited to Balochistan, it was rather, a very large scale flooding that started from Balochistan because of the heavy rain, but it also impacted, Punjab and KPK and Sindh. So almost all parts of the country were impacted. And since 2010, this was also one another big flooding, with devastating impact. So there were projects on ground, but all of a sudden, your priorities shift. You want to go and save lives. You want to provide immediate relief. And therefore, if you were working on something long term, you had to stop it and you have to divert your focus. So continuity gets disturbed as well. But at the same time, it also, make us realize that nature also has different phenomenons. It's not only riverine floods, because in Pakistan we were experiencing riverine floods because of the glaciers melting and rains in the mountains and all that. But this time around it was continuous rains for 4 days in places which hardly receive any rain before. So that was a very different phenomenon, and we were not prepared for it. We did not invest into resilience or preparedness adequately. So that was a wake up call for us. So I think now everybody is talking about it, that we must grow more trees. We should stop cutting down the jungle or the forest area that we have, and then we need to protect our rivers. So there are plenty of things that we should be investing on to. And it also links with the earlier question. There are people with very good expertise. There are people with very good, different fields, for example, and they can contribute. They can contribute in designing the projects. They can contribute in, sharing the ideas that how to make world more resilient, for example. So I think we need all of this kind of advice as well, and piece of, ideas. So there could be ideas, workshops that how can people contribute rather differently. And if you have families, extended families living in Pakistan, you can, speak to them. You can tell them that let's maybe, grow tree. We can name one person and say that this is my plant, donated for the country. And it is not only for Pakistan but also for the whole, entire universe, because nowadays we can see that any, carbon emissions taking place in the west are resulting into the south or the east of the globe as well. So we all are, connected, interconnected. So any, industrial emissions, carbon emissions taking place in China or India, for example, has an impact on people living in the West as well. So I think we all need to contribute, and it is beyond money, basically.
Thank you. Mohammed Ahmad, same question. Climate change. What can we do?
Yeah, so it's a global phenomenon, but Pakistan has a peculiar situation because we are uh, contributing less than 1%, but the impact we are receiving is far greater than that. We are fifth or sixth in the most vulnerable countries list. And every now and then we are facing climate impact. And since long, as Adil mentioned, since 2010, there was a mega flood in 2010, and then there were other regional flooding. Almost every year we are receiving flooding, but it is not limited to flooding. At the same time, we are fighting the droughts in some of the areas and heat waves as well, and the environmental issues. It is impacting every sector of life. If it is agriculture, if it is industry, if it is transportation, if it is education, so every sector is impacted. Is in one of the COP conference, we came up with the slogan that it is in Pakistan is facing, but it will not stay with Pakistan. It has a global phenomenon. So it's our collective responsibility to safeguard the earth we are living in. Uh, so it's everybody' responsibility. I think resilience and preparedness is the key answer. Uh, so we all need to work together. It's everybody' responsibility to work for the climate uh, in individual capacity, as a communities, as countries, as a globe. It's our global response, a shared responsibility. Pakistan is impacted the most. We are working in climate, but again, like the countries, if they are pulling out from the Paris Agreement, who are contributing the most, I think we need to raise voices as well. There should be some ethics living in this world. If you are contributing and the rest of the people are impacting, and the whole global is impacted, so it's the primarily responsibility of the countries who are contributing carbon to the globe, and to support those who are impacted by their deeds. They are not doing it. So I think the first and foremost thing is to reduce the carbon from our like individual life. Whatever we can do, we can educate our children, our youth, We can change our practices, but the most important thing is to raise voice and invest in those areas who are affected by the carbon emission, the climate impacts. This is our moral responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Mohammed. I'm going to wrap up here. I know we're at time, and of course, it's 6 a.m. in Pakistan. So I would like to thank you for your sacrificing your sleep to be here with us today and to share your message. Um, you know, Human Concern International, of course, we're always going to be part of every solution, whether it's climate change or otherwise. And I really would like to thank you both, Mohammed Ahmad and Adil, especially for taking the time, and of course for Mashoud and Ahmed for sharing your stories on your recent experiences visiting Pakistan and observing these impactful projects. So without further ado, of course, we're at the eve of Ramadan now. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to see Ramadan. Ramadan Mubarak. And thank you for everyone who's been listening for your time as well. Please do, watch out for the next webinar. You can follow us at Human Concern on Instagram, HCI Canada, or you can visit our website, humanconcern.org, to learn more about the projects that we're doing. So with that being said, thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum. Take care.